Clyde was a threat. You know, I'm not saying he wasn't a threat.
The thing that made Clyde so special was, A, his athleticism was off the charts.
A lot of speed, athleticism, can handle the ball, make plays. So it was a big challenge for me to be able to have to run up against, a guy like Clyde.
When people talk about Michael Jordan, the conversation usually ends there. The greatest competitor, the perfect combination of skill, grace, and killer instinct. But during Jordan's prime, there was one man who wasn't far behind. One man who could fly just as high, attack just as fearlessly, and make crowds erupt with the same kind of awe. That man was Clyde the Glide Drexler. In an era where Jordan defined greatness, Drexler quietly became his reflection. A near mirror image in athleticism and style. He was smooth, explosive, and relentless, leading the Portland Trail Blazers to multiple deep playoff runs and back-to-back finals appearances. Every time Drexler took off on a fast break, it felt like gravity was on pause. His hang time wasn't about power, it was about poetry. But what made Clyde's story fascinating wasn't just how good he was. It was how close he came to breaking through the ceiling that only Jordan seemed to touch. For a few seasons, their numbers weren't that different. Both could score 25 a night. Both could rebound, pass, defend, and take over games in the clutch. The difference was spotlight. One played under a global microscope, the other in a smaller market where greatness sometimes went unseen. This isn't about rewriting history, it's about remembering it. Because for a time, Michael Jordan had a true equal in flight, a man who could soar beside him. But Michael, being Michael, he took it personally. This is how Clyde Drexler was compared to Michael Jordan, and almost lived up to it. John Sally, who faced both Jordan and Drexler during his Bad Boys Pistons days, always had a unique perspective on that era. Clyde Drexler wasn't just another star, he was a copy of Jordan, in the best possible way. Sally once said that when Drexler was in motion, it felt like watching a carbon copy of MJ glide down the court. The way he extended on dunks, the midair control, even the pull-up jumper, it was all eerily similar.
I told you when we were sitting here and everybody thought I was a Michael Jordan hater when I said, am I the only one who saw him and Clyde in 1984 at the Olympic trials? Am I the only one that watched Clyde? Clyde Drexler was the man, period, right? I wear deuces. I love Clyde. Clyde would run by and do all these dunks, and he also couldn't play the game because he was in Portland. And Portland was out of the wheelhouse of the NBA changing this image.
Sally believed the only reason the world didn't see Drexler as Jordan's equal was because of marketing. Jordan had Nike, Gatorade, and global exposure. Clyde had Portland, a small market that didn't push him as the face of the league. If the NBA had put half the machine behind Drexler they did behind Mike, Sally said, we'd be talking about two GOATs, not one. To Sally, Drexler had every tool, the physique, the work ethic, and the showmanship. He just didn't have the same spotlight, and in an era driven by image, that difference meant everything. To him, Clyde wasn't behind Jordan, he was just unseen. Eddie Johnson, one of the sharpest voices from that era, often praised Clyde Drexler for something that got overlooked, his unselfishness. While most high-flying stars built their legacy on scoring, Clyde was different. He could easily put up 30 a night if he wanted to, but his instinct was always to make the right basketball play. Eddie described him as a superstar who played within the team. Drexler's ability to adapt, move the ball, and trust his teammates made Portland's offense flow like poetry. He wasn't hunting stats, he was chasing wins.
Loved the game of basketball and was very unselfish. And Clyde doesn't get enough credit for his unselfishness. He could have chucked the ball up a lot, and he didn't. He gave the ball to his teammates. He trusted his teammates. He allowed Terry Porter to actually be a point guard, and I thought enhanced Terry Porter's name and his ability to be seen. But Clyde could have just dominated that team at that particular point in time. Like, say, Michael Jordan was dominating the Bulls statistically, like Dominique was dominating Atlanta. Clyde Drexler could have done the same thing, but he decided not to. And it made him an all-around player and a great teammate.
When defenders overcommitted, he'd dish it off. When the team needed momentum, he'd take over. That balance was rare for someone with his athletic gifts. And those gifts were something else entirely. Clyde was built like a track sprinter, long, lean, and explosive. His first step could erase defenders, and once he took flight, he seemed to hover in slow motion. Eddie often said Drexler didn't just jump, he glided. He was proof that athleticism didn't have to be selfish. He showed that you could dominate the game without needing to dominate the spotlight. Isaiah Thomas knew athleticism. He played in an era filled with high flyers and physical giants. But even he couldn't believe what Clyde Drexler was capable of until the day he got dunked on. In one of their matchups against Portland, Drexler came down the lane, exploded off one step, and flushed it right over Isaiah.
And I'll never forget, I'm backpedaling, and he's coming down on the break, and I decide to stop and I'm gonna take a charge. And the only thing I saw was his knees like tucking in the air and him jumping over me and dunking it. Dumars took it out of bounds, and I asked him, I said, did he just jump over my head? Again, with his athleticism, his toughness, it was very difficult to play against him or guard him or to stop him. You just tried to contain him.
To Isaiah, that moment said everything about Clyde's athletic gifts. He wasn't just fast or strong, he had hang time that felt unreal. Once he left the floor, it was like the laws of physics paused for him. Thomas often said that Drexler made the game look effortless, even though what he was doing physically was almost impossible. What impressed Isaiah even more was Clyde's control in the air, twisting, floating, and finishing through contact without losing balance. He said Drexler floated midair because nothing ever looked forced. It was all rhythm, timing, and grace. After that dunk, Isaiah said he never underestimated Clyde again because few players ever made him feel that powerless on defense. Craig Hodges had a front row seat to greatness. As one of Michael Jordan's teammates in Chicago, he heard the private conversations, the ones players don't share with the media. And according to Hodges, there was one name Jordan respected more than most: Clyde Drexler. Hodges once recalled that behind closed doors, Jordan admitted Clyde was as good as him in pure ability.
It was like four of us, MJ included, and the conversation came up about Clyde Drexler. And MJ said this, and I quote, "Clyde Drexler is just as good as me. He just don't know how to play the game." Do you follow me? And we ain't talking about basketball. And that was the question. What do you mean? You know what I mean.
Jordan recognized that Drexler could do everything he could: score, rebound, pass, and defend at an elite level. Mike knew Clyde was real, Hodges said. What impressed Jordan and stuck with Hodges was how Drexler managed to dominate without trying to outshine anyone. He just played the game the right way. Hodges said it wasn't rivalry that fueled Jordan's respect, but recognition. He knew Drexler was one of the few who could look him in the eye on the court and not blink. To Hodges, that quiet acknowledgement spoke volumes. When the most competitive man in basketball admits someone's on his level, that's the ultimate respect. Robert Horry has faced some of the game's greatest scorers, but one play against Clyde Drexler still sticks with him. It was during his early years with Houston, when Horry thought he had the perfect angle to stop Clyde's drive. Drexler came charging down the lane, body leaning forward, eyes locked on the rim. Horry rose up, expecting a powerful dunk. Instead, Clyde floated by and finished with that signature finger roll, smooth as silk, right over Horry's outstretched hand.
It was so many great memories. I remember one time we was playing you in Portland. I said, I'm gonna get Clyde stuff because I know he's gonna do that spin with his head down and do that finger roll. Man, I dang near put my arm out of socket trying to swing at it. And the ball just said, shoot, right over my face. Like, how in the heck did he see me? He spent it just a little bit more to get it over me. I was like, come on, man, I'm gonna get it one time.
Horry couldn't believe it. He thought he'd timed the block perfectly, until Clyde glided past him like gravity didn't apply. You think he's gonna slam it, then he just floats and flips it in, Horry later said. By the time you land, the ball's already through the net. To Horry, that finger roll summed up who Clyde was, a player who made the spectacular look effortless. It wasn't brute force that beat defenders, it was grace. Every move was calculated, smooth and unhurried, even in chaos. That night, Horry realized you couldn't stop Clyde Drexler's glide. You could only hope to be part of the highlight. Before Scottie Pippen became a champion and defensive icon, he was a kid from Arkansas watching Clyde Drexler light up the league. Pippen often said that Drexler was one of the players he studied most. The long arms, the smooth strides, the ability to attack the rim without ever seeming rushed. Clyde was the blueprint for guys like me, Pippen once admitted. He made being athletic and controlled look easy. By the time the 1992 NBA Finals arrived, that admiration turned into anxiety. Pippen had gone from fan to opponent, and he knew what Drexler was capable of.
Had a chance to play with a guy that, I idolized young, and had a chance to play against Clyde in the finals, and I must say, I was very afraid going into that series because it was that moment really where Clyde was probably one of my biggest challenges for as a small forward in the game, a guy that played a lot like me, a lot of speed, athleticism, can handle the ball, make plays. So it was a big challenge for me to be able to have to run up against a guy like Clyde. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories that I take from playing against that Portland team, especially against Clyde.
Portland's offense revolved around Clyde's glide, constant motion, slashing cuts, and perfectly timed bursts of speed. Pippen later said that going into that series, he wasn't just preparing for any all-star. He was preparing for one of the few players he genuinely feared guarding. What made Drexler so dangerous in Pippen's eyes wasn't just athleticism, it was unpredictability. One moment, he'd pull up for a jumper, the next, he'd explode to the rim and hang just long enough to finish over you. Even when Chicago eventually took control of the series, Pippen never lost respect for him. Ray Allen didn't just watch basketball, he studied it. And when he looked back at the players who shaped his understanding of the game, one name always stood out: Clyde Drexler. To Ray, Drexler wasn't just fast or strong, he was effortless. Every move, every stride, every leap had a rhythm that made defenders look slow. You didn't just see him run, Allen said. He glided, he floated. Watching Clyde streak down the court, arms swinging in perfect harmony, was like watching someone defy gravity.
I remember being in the 8th, 9th, 10th grade watching Clyde Drexler play, sitting on my couch, and really starting to have an attraction for the game of basketball. Even though I was outside playing it, maybe 20 minutes earlier, I would come in, watch the game for a little bit, and go back out and play again. I could never sit in front of the TV and watch it. But then when they started saying Clyde Drexler and show when he dunked the ball or anything great he did, I was attracted to the TV and made me want to sit there and watch it. When he almost jumped on the free throw line, I think he was playing the Lakers. And, both his feet off in the air, that was his signature, dunk. One hand came down the lane. He floated.
What made Drexler remarkable in Allen's eyes wasn't the highlight reel plays alone. It was how natural he made everything look. No wasted motion. No frantic bursts. Just smooth, calculated motion. Every layup, cut, and fast break finish seemed preordained, as if the court itself knew where he would go. Ray said that Clyde's glide left an imprint on him that he carried throughout his own career. A lesson in how athleticism and grace could exist in perfect harmony. Watching Drexler, Allen realized that true greatness wasn't just about what you could do, it was how you made it look inevitable. Sam Mitchell, a tenacious forward who faced Drexler in the late 80s and early 90s, always shook his head when people overlooked Clyde's greatness. To Mitchell, Drexler was criminally underrated. He wasn't just a scorer or a highlight machine. He was a complete player who could do it all. Yet somehow, in the eyes of fans and media, he was often seen as behind Jordan.
He was just smooth, man. Clyde played the game hard and efficient, but he was so cool the way he played and so smooth, and he made the game seem effortless. And when you watch him, man, everything was just done with ease, but he was a great player. He was a lethal scorer. And at the time, the only Achilles heel Clyde Drexler had, that he played in the same era as Michael Jordan. Because during that era, if it wasn't for Michael Jordan, Clyde Drexler would have been known as the best two guard in the East or Western Conference, hands down.
Mitchell remembered guarding Drexler and being shocked by his combination of speed, finesse, and basketball IQ. Clyde could drive, pull up, dish out assists, rebound, and defend, all without breaking a sweat. What frustrated Mitchell most was that Drexler never got the recognition he deserved. Portland was a smaller market, and Clyde didn't have the flashy marketing machine behind him that some other stars had. But on the court, he demanded respect. Anyone who discounted Clyde's game simply wasn't paying attention. Drexler wasn't just great. He was one of the most complete, smooth, and unstoppable players of his era. And the league knew it, even if the spotlight didn't always follow. When Michael Jordan talks about players he respected the most, few names come up as often as Clyde Drexler, and for good reason. Jordan admitted that on any given night, Drexler was a legitimate threat. Someone who could take over a game in ways eerily similar to himself. Clyde could do everything I could, Jordan said.
Well, Clyde is somewhat of a mirror of me in a sense. I mean, he's so versatile. He plays offense, he plays defense, he's good with assists, he can score, so you got to respect him in all areas of basketball. I'm just going to try to contain him as much as possible. Try to force him to shoot the outside shot, as most people try to force me to shoot the outside shot, and force him to his weaker hand, which is left. And that's what people do to me, so hopefully it can work against him.
Jordan's respect wasn't casual. He had faced countless stars, but Drexler pushed him differently. Clyde could fly past defenders, attack with precision, and read the court like a veteran point guard. On defense, he could guard multiple positions. On offense, he could take over without ever forcing the issue. Jordan called him one of the toughest opponents I ever had because he made you earn every point. What struck Jordan most was Drexler's balance of athleticism and poise. Many players relied on raw explosiveness. Clyde? He combined speed, grace, and intelligence, making him almost impossible to predict. Jordan admitted that if Drexler had Jordan's spotlight and marketing, people might have debated them as equals. Clyde Drexler wasn't just another all-star. He was a genuine threat, a competitor, and a player who mirrored his own game in ways that demanded respect. And coming from the greatest, that acknowledgement carries its own weight. Clyde Drexler's career is a masterclass in athleticism, versatility, and consistency. He could do it all: score from anywhere on the floor, glide past defenders with effortless speed, make pinpoint passes, and finish through contact with grace. Every time he stepped on the court, it was a reminder that basketball could be both powerful and beautiful, explosive and elegant. Yet, for all his brilliance, Drexler's greatness was sometimes overlooked. He didn't need the spotlight, endorsements, or media attention to define his legacy. His impact was measured in every highlight, every clutch play, and every deep playoff run. He led his teams with confidence, inspired his teammates, and brought a sense of rhythm to the game that few players have ever matched. Clyde's career wasn't just about individual numbers or awards. It was about influence, the way he elevated the game, the way he made players and fans alike stop and appreciate what true talent looked like. He reminded the basketball world that athleticism could be paired with intelligence, that dominance could exist without arrogance, and that style could coexist with substance. In the end, Clyde Drexler's story isn't about comparisons or debates. It's about respect. It's about recognizing a player who soared through the NBA with skill, grace, and determination. Clyde the Glide didn't just play the game, he defined a standard of excellence that continues to inspire generations of players and fans.